pleasure in attracting a stellar list of speakers that address today's most relevant issues. The club's place as a refuge for rich discussion and networking has never wavered after 123 seasons.
We are dedicated to encouraging debate on the issues that matter to this city, this province, and this country.
The Canadian Club is one of the most important podiums anywhere in the world that a Canadian can speak to, tell Canadians what it is that they think, develop those thoughts. And so I want to thank you for that very, very much.
Please join me in thanking our esteemed panelists today.
Through our programs and events, including our youth and young leaders programs, our diversity partnerships, our joint events, and our media and social media opportunities, we offer you access to dynamic political, social, and business figures from abroad and right here at home.
The platform from which the eloquence of Canada has flowed all of that time, whether it be business, education, politics, sports, arts, and culture. If someone wants to say something to Canadians about this country and about the future of this country, this is the venue you choose.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Bruce Celery, and I am the immediate past president of the Canadian Club of Toronto. It is our great pleasure today to be hosting Sarah Davis. She is the president of Loblaw Companies Ltd. And that's how I justified hosting today's event in my kitchen, because I thought grocery, food, totally fits. Look at those bananas. You'll never guess where I got those. Perfect, right? So I should say, by way of background, one of my very first jobs as a teenager was as a stock boy in a small grocery store. And back in those days, it was stock boys. I applied to be a cashier, but unfortunately, I wasn't eligible at that time. It was a role in which I don't think I ever heard anyone ever thank me for my service. And for most of us, that's not how we thought either. Like, we didn't think about the people stocking the shelves and working the cash and bringing in the supermarket or the shopping carts. We didn't think about that as service until March the 14th. And of course, everything changed on March the 14th. While the world was shutting down, the grocery stores were ramping up. And I will say, we all have had such different reactions to the pandemic. Certainly when I think about areas where I'm not necessarily stoic, it was in those first few weeks and months doing the grocery shopping. So, for some people, that was a touchstone to normalcy. And for other people, it was a terrifying walk across the battlefield. If there was going to be one place in which I was overcome by the emotion of the pandemic, it was going to be in the parking lot after doing the grocery shop. I don't know why it hit me that way, but it did. And when I'm talking ugly cry, I don't mean like the WestJet Christmas TV commercial where you're kind of dabbing your eyes because it's really moving. I'm talking like E.T. is getting on the UFO and going back to his home planet kind of ugly cry. So that was me in the parking lot of the grocery store, and I am quite sure that I am not the only one there. As I was talking about this event with my sister yesterday, she said, be sure to mention Danielle. Danielle, yeah. My mom is 84 years old. She has Parkinson's disease. She is spry. She is feisty. She is amazing. And my sister orders my mom's groceries from the Value Mart. And in the little note on the online thing, it says my mom's going to show up at 1 o'clock in a blue Toyota. And every time that order is sent in, Danielle watches for my mother. And my mom comes into the parking lot, and Danielle is there in a flash with all the groceries. My mom doesn't use a cell phone. She doesn't have to call. She doesn't have to go in, because Danielle sees it as her job to make sure that my mom's groceries are delivered literally to the trunk of her car as safely as possible. And I know that is one story out of millions that Canadians would talk about in terms of the service that those in the grocery industry have been called upon to deliver. Loblaws is one of those grocery stores, is one of those ones that has a real cultural connection. And today we're going to hear about its successes, its challenges, and hopefully how we can get a lifetime supply of PC Elk Crossing flavor ice cream, because that's like the number one thing. If you are having trouble with your internet, just push the button that says click here to switch stream. That will take you to one that has a lower bandwidth, and it'll slow things down a bit, but should work. If you have questions, and we love your questions, just click on the questions tab, and those questions will go directly to our moderator. If you need any technical help about this webinar, there is a request help button at the bottom of the page, so please click that. These events simply do not happen without the support of our sponsors, and there are two sponsors that I would like to thank today: Borden Ladner Gervais and PwC. Now, Canadian Club, we've been around for 124 years, and it is really because of our sponsors that we can continue to do what we do. So we thank you very much for your support of today's event, and we have asked Loblaws to name 2 of next summer's ice cream flavors after your respective firms. BLG will have brownie licorice Garcia flavor, and PwC will have peanut butter with caramel cookie crunch, which I think is genius. Sarah Davis, our speaker, the president of Loblaw Companies. She is responsible for the strategic direction and day-to-day operations of Canada's largest retailer and Canada's food and pharmacy leader. Ms. Davis joined Loblaw in 2007, and prior to assuming the role of president in 2017, served as chief financial officer and chief administrative officer, responsible for real estate strategy, information technology, supply chain, human resources, and I assume ice cream. Ms. Davis also serves as the chair of PC Children's Charity and Tnt Supermarkets. Sarah Davis will be joined in conversation by Anita McOuat, National Leader Technology and Media, Telecom and Consumer Markets for PwC, and the president of the Canadian Club of Toronto. Hello to you, Sarah and Anita. You know about the tradition that we do, but by way of welcome, Sarah, I think that really the most important thing I can do is bring the Ziggy's sliced pepperoni, which is the only pepperoni that my daughter will ever eat. I also have some Splendido pesto, a can of no-name tuna because it's like the best deal, a little bit of original fluffy pancake mix, but it's almost done. And the thing that is probably going to overwhelm you with emotion is my PC Optimum cart. So all of those by way of welcome. We want you to feel here at home. We also would ask for your participation in a tradition that has been around at the Canadian Club our entire history. We continue to do it virtually. It is a toast to Canada. If we could raise whatever glass we have, I don't know, PC eggnog, and raise a toast to Canada. To Canada.
To Canada.
Anita, I pass the baton and the pesto over to you.
Thanks, Bruce. Now you're making me hungry. Lunchtime. And welcome, Sarah. Thanks so much for gracing our virtual podium today. And what a year it's been. We're going to cover a lot of ground, I hope. And audience, please send us your questions. We'll sprinkle them in as they come in. So you're leading one of Canada's largest companies. I know it's always crazy for you. There's never a dull moment, but this year you have to admit it's been crazier than ever before. And just before we kick it off, personally, how are you managing through all this?
Yeah, well, thanks, Anita. Thanks for inviting me, and that was quite the welcome from Bruce. So I'm glad that he's got so many of our products. That's good to see. Yeah, I am really looking forward to this year being over. It really was. It was a tough one for sure. I think for me, it's been, I like people. And so that's probably the hardest part for me. I like the socializing. I like the communicating. So I would say the way that I've kind of stayed somewhat sane, I would say professionally and personally, is trying to continue with the human contact, obviously doing it in a different way. Lots more virtual than I would have ever done in my life. And certainly through social pieces with my daughters, whether it's texting or whatever, group chats or anything like that, that's kind of been, so trying to keep the contacts going. And then I would say, trying to maintain some kind of routine in my day-to-day life. Like I still get up, I still do the whole routine of getting ready, I take my dog for a walk, all of that, trying to keep some kind of routine going. And I would say trying to exercise, obviously gyms have closed, so I have to change the way that I do that too. Trying to eat well. So just the basics, but mostly staying in contact with people, exercising, eating, and yeah, spending a lot of time, online, that's for sure.
I know. Yeah. I mean, it's the same for everyone, but I find if you even go a day without some of those things, the interaction, the exercise, you really feel it now, whereas it might have been fine before, right?
Yeah.
You've spoken publicly before about how quickly Loblaw had to react back in the early days of March. I mean, we're now several months, most of the year has passed. And as you reflect on that time, what are you most proud of looking back, and what are your lessons learned?
That's a good one. I mean, definitely proud of how our teams came together. So certainly for a company like ours, obviously it's a big company. And so to have a big business come together, to be super agile, I found that our decision making was faster than it's ever been. As a management board, so me and my direct reports, we met every day, made decisions every day, 7 days a week. And then they would go down to our stores and our distribution centers. And so we had a nice, feedback loop. So super proud of that. The team coming, all the silos that you might have across businesses, all of that came down. Everybody was there. Everybody participated every day. Nobody missed a meeting. Like in all the months that we had daily meetings, no one ever missed. Everybody was always super prepared for it. So definitely proud of that. And then of course, the teams of people who are working in our stores. We never could have done this without them being deemed an essential service. And then to Bruce's point, having people scared about coming into our stores, well, you can imagine what it was like for the people who had to go to work as well. So I would say unbelievably proud of all the people who showed up every day, whether it was in our food stores or in our shoppers stores, really living out our purpose, which is to help Canadians live life well. I relaunched it at the beginning of the year in January, sort of did this whole roadshow about our purpose and about the importance of helping Canadians live life well, but never ever did I imagine how it was really going to come to life in 2020. So pretty proud about that. And we had lots of people volunteering. So we certainly in the beginning, we had lots of office colleagues volunteering to work in the stores, helping out every day. We had hundreds of members that volunteered. We had registered nurses in some of our clinics that helped support telehealth for the government. So it really was, pretty good seeing everybody come together for it. And then I would say now it's a little bit different. So now in the second phase or third phase, depending on how you count, of the pandemic, it's a bit different. So when at the beginning, the whole country basically shut down, and everything all at the same time, we put processes in right across the country that were sort of aligned across, whether it was plexiglass or having distancing or masks or any of the different protocols we put in place. We sort of did it across the country in more than 2,400 stores, and so it was like very systematic the way we did it. Now many of our stores are operating in what we would consider a bit of a new normal. Like we have got used to the way that the stores are operating. We're used to people showing up in masks. We're used to people social distancing. The way that's happening is different. But now as we have different parts of the country going into different phases, we do have to look at it a little differently depending on which store you're in and which community you're in as well. But pretty proud about how the whole company really came together through this.
You could really feel it as a customer. I would echo Bruce. I actually had some emotional moments where it really hit you what was going on when you were in the store, because that was kind of the only place that you were going, right, in those early days.
Yeah.
You've mentioned you've got thousands of employees. You mentioned how you connected with them. How are you staying connected now, though?
Yeah, so I mean, certainly in the beginning, as I said, we had this like management board meeting every day, and then we would sort of have communications go to stores. So I got into the habit of writing sort of an email that was sent to all colleagues, but also sort of posted on we use Yammer, and it would have been posted so that all colleagues could read it. And it was basically started as, here are some things that we're doing. This is why we're doing it. So a bit of a communication of what we were doing and a communication as to why we were doing it, how they should see it come to life. And then it ended up being a bit of a feedback loop where people could then, it would come back through the channels to say, yeah, that worked, or that was a bad idea, let's do something different. And whether it was seniors hours or, special hours for healthcare workers or skip the line or whatever decisions we made, there were lots of them happening at the time. And so we got immediate feedback. And then because we posted it on social, on Yammer, we got a nice two-way communication. So we really did get feedback right away. So I would say that was sort of how it started in the beginning. I've gone to weekly now, so I thought at one point, like, I don't have enough to say something every single day about what's happening. So I've moved to weekly, so that would still be part of the communications piece, still, talking about anything from, a good book that might be helpful for people, or an article, or mental health services that people can have. Anything that comes to mind, calling out great service, calling out, announcing a customer story that was a real beautiful story. We got lots and lots of those this year. So certainly doing that. And then I would say with our teams, like sort of our work teams, we're doing a lot on virtually. So lots of virtual, like these Zoom calls, WebEx, Microsoft Teams. We've got a lot of different software going. But basically doing it that way as well. And I actually feel the closest I ever have to all the colleagues in our stores. Like, I really do think that we've closed the gap, between, me being able to reach, 200,000 people. But I've had so many emails, personal notes, yammer, good and bad, but certainly feel that I'm really way closer to them. So that's been maybe one of the benefits of going through this pandemic.
Oh, yeah, silver lining for sure. You mentioned all the colleagues at your corporate head office, and that you're almost exclusively working virtually, as we all have been. As the leader of the organization, and you mentioned the culture that's so important to any company. Are you worried about maintaining your corporate culture while everyone's virtual, and how are you thinking about that?
Yeah, I really believe in culture, and we've been on a long culture journey. I would say we call it our blue culture. And it started probably just prior to the Shoppers acquisition, so quite a long time ago. And we've done a lot of work in this space, and the importance of not just getting stuff done, but the way that you get it done as well. So I do actually really believe in a good corporate culture. I feel that we've made a lot of progress in that. And so, yeah, I am a bit worried about it, because I think part of what, kept us together and made us work so well together through the pandemic was that we had all that history together of working together and being in the offices together. And the longer you are apart, I do think it makes it harder. And so I'm definitely not a business that plans to be remote forever. Like, I have every intention of coming back to the office. I think it's important. And I think for us, that will be our plan. I think it's going to be different, though. Like, I think we won't be working the same way as we did before. I think we've all proven, and certainly from my perspective, we proved, before that we could all work together when we were in the office together. And now we've proven that we can all work together when we're not in the office at all. And I really would love to be able to find that perfect balance between working well together in the office, and then of course being able to do things remotely as well, and having that flexibility. So finding that perfect balance is what we're looking for. And so certainly asking our office workers, how do they see it coming to life? How do they want to work? But definitely there'll be some days when people, depending on your role, like there's always going to be some need to come into the office, even if it's just to have that bonding with people. Really difficult for anybody who's joined. So I don't know if you have lots of employees that have joined during the pandemic. We've had quite a few, and to have never met, the people that you work with, never to have had, some time together. I really think that's critical. So we will be coming back together. We will spend time together, just in a different way. And hopefully it's not too far away. Like you, I did start to come into the office more often. As well. And now with this second phase, we are sort of advising people not to come in. We did have quite a few coming in. So it was nice to see that social contact, but hopefully not too much longer.
Yeah, I think that vaccine can't get here soon enough, in my opinion. And we're going to touch on the vaccine a little bit later. In addition to the pandemic, which is where we started out, the other major thing that happened this year was a real renewed focus on social issues, diversity, equity. How are you thinking about that as you think about your senior management team and maybe the company as a whole? Tell me a bit about the diversity and equity initiatives.
Yeah, so for us, for sure. So I would say part of our culture journey has been about this, developing an inclusive culture, making sure, some of the principles, we basically have 3 principles of the culture of building, and one of them is to be authentic. another is to build trust, and the other is to make connections. So those are sort of the elements of it. So certainly being authentic is about being able to be free to be who you are, to come to work as your own person, and to be accepted for who you are. So I would say that's sort of grounded in our culture. And then we have basically 4 pillars of our diversity and inclusion council. So we've got one which is Go Further Women. We've got one for ABLE at Loblaws, which is for people with disabilities. We've got Proud to Be Me, which is for sexual orientation. And then there would be the 4th, which is all about Embrace Your Roots, which is all about diversity of visible minorities. And so I would say we have really key pillars. We have a really great team, which is right across the whole business. It's not just a few people working on it. It's really embedded in all of our businesses. And for us, we don't think of it as just like a kind of a nice thing to do. It really is foundational to our business. We are a business that serves all Canadians. We are a mass merchant. We need to reflect all of Canadians in our business and in our workforce. We need to make sure we offer products that are appropriate for everybody. We want everybody to feel welcome in our stores. We want them to feel welcome in our distribution centers, and of course in our offices as well. And so it's a major part of what we do. So we've done everything from having town halls to discuss issues, to talk about some of the issues, to have, really, we've actually gone out and given ourselves goals of what we want to achieve in terms of our mix, certainly and we're pretty balanced when you look at our total workforce in terms of diversity. But of course, as you move your way up the organization, it's not as mixed and diverse as I would like it to be. So giving ourselves some goals of what we want to achieve by when, in terms of visible minorities as well as gender. We really have publicly published some of those now. And I think the transparency that we're showing to our own workforce and holding ourselves accountable to the goals that we have set has been instrumental as well in this. And then even as much as looking at some of our products. So we actually had a review of some of our products to say, is any of the packaging of a President's Choice product or a no-name product, are we sure that we're wearing, looking at it with the right lenses? Is there anything that would be deemed, gender inappropriate or, gender bias? So we've been doing it in our products as well. So I would say it's pretty fundamental to our business. Definitely making sure that we do that across our whole network. Certainly in our stores, we want people to feel like, if you're in a certain type of community, we want people to feel that when they come into the stores, and that the people who work in the stores are representative of the community as well, and the products that are sold in that store are representative as well. So certainly a very big fundamental thing for us. But I wouldn't say that we have it all figured out. Like, we have our, certainly have our concerns in certain areas as well. And so we've been talking about it, addressing it wherever we see it coming up as well.
Right. Well, it sounds like the goals are helpful, because these things often take many years. You can't switch it overnight. So
right.
It's good to have something to look forward to. All right, I'm getting lots of questions about retail specific areas. So let's jump into that. And like many retailers, Loblaw has also been on a journey to become a data-driven organization. And this seems to also be tied to your personal brand as a leader when I was, reading all that's been written about you. How is that journey going from your perspective, and how are you feeling about the rate of progress?
I fundamentally do believe in data. It does sound like that's all I'm very mathy. I've been quoted a few times on that one. And it's true. Like, I do love the data. I really do think that it's fundamental to a business like ours. I believe in data. I believe in the importance of analytics. But I also think that I also believe in experience. So I actually do think that you need both. I really believe that retail is a blend of art and science. And and in our business, we have both. I think they both matter. I don't think you can solve, every problem in our business with math. I think there is a nice art to retail. So I don't want anyone to think that I don't believe in that as well. But I do think we have so much data in our business, and everybody now, and just the ability to do more with data, as the capacities of being able to, churn through all that data are improving over time. It's just so fundamental to us to be able to make better decisions for our customers, better decisions for our employees. I really do believe in it. And I think it's, we can use the data to run our business better. And it can help our vendors as well. So if we can actually get, perfect forecasting in order to be able to replenish our stores in a perfect way, that ultimately makes for a better experience in store. The availability is better. It allows for better predictability for our vendors, which makes their life better. It allows for better labor management in our stores so that scheduling is done better. So I really do think that in a business like ours, data can be really fundamental to the way that you operate your business in every aspect of it. So right from, having better options for customers, as well as right to how you run your business. So, and where are we? I would say we're doing pretty well. Like, we really focused on it. We've got a pretty good data team using lots of data in our business. But I would say you're never done, especially now. There's just so much volume that there's always something more you could do. So for me, we've been on it for a while. We brought our loyalty programs together in 2018. So we've got a lot of data there as well. But I would say still lots to do on that, but totally believe in it.
Kind of related, another area that's been on your agenda for some time is the concept of a connected health network. And that's definitely tied to data as well, but sure, some other things. And, I'm curious to hear how that's going, but then also to tie into the vaccine, because I think one thing that's become clear as we think about a rollout of a vaccine is, how are we going to track it, and how are we going to get it to people? How are we going to track it? And I'm curious how you're thinking about that.
Yeah, so we have had one of our strategic initiatives is becoming, is this thing we call the Connected Health Network. We think it's going really well. 2020 has actually been sort of a helpful year in terms of propelling in some of these areas, in terms of allowing, pharmacies to participate in some things that they wouldn't have been prior due to, different regulations. So I would say, and we do believe that we can be the front door for healthcare. So bringing together like thousands of trusted healthcare professionals in our business with a strong network of pharmacies, and as well as support for Canadians. And we've, launched, the PC Health app, which is what we're hoping will be sort of a way for Canadians to navigate into the healthcare and stay healthy in it. In terms of specifically related to COVID, and we have been given permission by a couple of provinces to be able to do some of the testing, the asymptomatic testing in our pharmacies. So that was, for us, that was a great, vote of confidence. We have been providing, services to the government. We really are open to help the government in any way that we can provide healthy services to Canadians. So being able to do some of that testing was really great. And then when it comes to the vaccine, we're very open to being able to provide the vaccine. We've been doing flu vaccines for quite a number of years now. This year, we did the most flu vaccines that we have ever done by this point in a year. And we really do feel like we're well positioned to be able to do the COVID vaccine as well. We do have the ability to track it. It's most likely a 2-dose vaccine, so we would be able to track who has had it. We would be able to, make an appointment if that's the way that we want the country wants it to be rolled out, or we would be able to do it with walk-in. So we really are flexible. We do have the tools in place to be able to do it and to offer it at pharmacy. We've got a nice, we've been also partnering with businesses as well. So we've got a nice partnership with Air Canada. And then yesterday we announced it with WestJet as well, where you can actually get tested before a flight or after a flight as well. So I think we really do want to be there for Canadians and help them live life well in the way that they can. So open, and we'll wait to see how the government wants to roll it out, but we're definitely been participating in those conversations.
We all wait with bated breath, just the thought about getting on a flight to a warm location. It's like a dream. We heard Bruce at the top talk about his parents, doing their groceries online. And I think many Canadians have now embraced buying groceries online when they said they never would. Do you think that behavior change is here to stay, though?
Well, I definitely think it's going to be much higher than it was pre-COVID. So definitely the behavior is here to stay. It may not be at the same high level that it was at the height, But I do think now that people have tried it, lots of people that maybe, to your point, were hesitant about trying it, now find that it's actually pretty convenient. And so certainly from our perspective, we would have predicted sort of the penetration to be like, it's about 2 to 3 years earlier than what we were that were in our plans as a result of the pandemic. And so we did sort of have to rush a lot of, scaling of our offering to make sure that we could deal with that demand. But so I do think it is going to be there. And for us, we really do want to have different options for, Canadians, whether they want to have it, shop sometimes, like certainly pre-pandemic, that's what we would have saw. The same customer would shop in the store. They would sometimes go and pick up their groceries at the store. Sometimes they would have delivery. So really dependent on their circumstance, how busy they were in their lives, they would have different ways. And I think that's going to stay. And I think it'll just end up being more people choose to do pickup or delivery than maybe they did before. That's how I see it staying, post-pandemic.
Can you tell us anything about the generational divide on that? I think in other retail, we've definitely seen younger people embracing, but just with the nature of COVID, do you see older Canadians participating too?
We have. So it is true, because I would have said that certainly the people who would have went on in the beginning, we did see, a lot of it was proportionately more men, which in our business, we still are, more, it is more women who shop in our stores, but more men were online. It was more a convenience play, especially the first early adopters. It was people who didn't really like shopping would be the first ones to say. And then it was busyness, like how busy you are in your life. And then so it was like young families who were driving kids around to different things that would find it convenient to be able to pick up. With the pandemic, what we are noticing is that it is skewing to older Canadians, and certainly a lot of anecdotal stories you hear about people helping their parents figure out how to get it all set up. And once you get your grocery order on, and especially if you have a pretty predictable shop, you can just go to the quick shop and you can pretty much every week have similar things that you can have either go and pick up, like the story of that Bruce told, or you can have it delivered as well. So we do think that it will stay. And then I think it depends on how, people feel about it. Certainly there's lots of people who are dying to get out and be able to do it. And certainly my own mother, she said she likes actually going. It was the only thing she was able to get out of her condo to do. So for her, she liked going to do it. So I think it's going to depend on it as well. But yes, we have seen an increase in the age of some of the people who are doing it.
That's interesting. And what about cooking? Before the pandemic, all grocers were contending with the fact that Canadians were cooking less, actually, eating out more and trying to find convenient meal solutions. So do you think Canadians are rediscovering cooking this year? And is that likely to continue into 2021?
Definitely think Canadians have rediscovered cooking, whether they wanted to or not. They are definitely rediscovering it. And so I think that we've definitely seen, the stories that you hear about, flour and all of that. Like, I think in some of our stores, we actually ran out of yeast. Like, never in the history of the company would that have, would we have had a demand on, yeast and flour and all of these, people baking bread all the time and all these cooking things. So I definitely think there's been a rediscovery. I think it will probably say to some extent, like, as, we go into 2021, depending on, how quickly it is for restaurants to be able to be opened up again. I do think that, where people are going to be cooking, but I also think that, Canadians are looking for alternatives. Like, you have lots of people who are, have cooking fatigue. They're tired of cooking every single day and looking for alternatives. So I think for me, when I think about our business, I think our job is to help solve meals for Canadians. And so solving meals could mean, having, obviously traditionally selling groceries, but it could also be, having different alternatives like meals, ready to eat meals or meal kits or anything like that. I think that's part of it as well. So we just need to make sure that we have different offerings for Canadians in order to, if they don't feel like cooking one night, they have other alternatives.
On the meal kits, I'm glad you mentioned it because it's something you had actually launched not too long before the pandemic. And you've continued to launch more. It's a crowded space in Canada. So I'm curious about the decision to get into the meal kit.
Yeah, well, I think for us, it is just part of a whole bunch of other offerings that we would have. And for us, if you think of our mandate as solving meals, there's got to be more than one way to solve a meal. And as you mentioned, as we saw Canadians cooking a little less pre-pandemic, and you even heard people talking about, building condos that didn't even have kitchens because nobody used them, and all those, crazy stories. I don't know if, there was a whole lot to it, but you definitely saw a change as you went through the pandemic. But I think people will, revert back to some of this as well. So I think there has to be an alternative to cooking everything yourself from scratch. And so for us, it's just having different offers. So if you could have, so really our goal would be to have, obviously, you grocery shop, you make a meal, you buy a meal kit, and you have a nice, and you cook from scratch. It's all raw material, but it's all portioned out for you. Or you could have a meal that you just have to put in the oven, or you could have like any alternative like that, I would say that we're looking at. So we think we're well positioned to be able to do it. And we have launched it, and some of our kits are very popular. So it is something that, we think is going to stay for us in our business for sure.
What has been the most popular? Can you tell us?
That's a good question. I mean, so I don't know what our number one selling kit is, but I know the salmon one is actually quite popular. I know the beef, I think it's a beef teriyaki one is quite popular.
All right.
Yeah, and then in terms of we've got a few that you basically just have to put in the oven. That will be a bit more going to all stores. Like some of these are just in pilot right now. The butter chicken is actually really, really good. You should try that one. And you just have to put it in the oven. It's delicious. So that one's an easy one.
Now we're even hungrier. But somebody actually asked, what are the more popular products? I'm actually going to go to some of these questions because they're coming in really fast and furious. So are you seeing any different trends coming from your different brands?
And brands, do we mean, I don't know, I guess you don't know, it's just a question. So I would say, I'll try to do a few different things.
Maybe we'll call it your private brands, just to narrow it down.
Okay, so private brands, I would say, we have obviously a great brand in President's Choice. I would say nothing, we have been, I wouldn't say necessarily COVID related, but we've certainly seen a move to, move away from, meat products and have meat alternative products. So we've been doing quite a bit of work in that area. So that's a new thing that's happening. I would say not, as I said, not necessarily related to the pandemic, but we've seen movement there. People are choosing, you sort of read about people choosing to have one less meal a day with meat in it. So there would be, alternatives there. I would say certainly this year, what we're seeing with our insiders report is a real great, lots of nice indulgences. And that's partially the time of year, but it's also, people are really appreciating if they can't go out and they can't go to restaurants and they can't see their family and they can't see their friends, at least they can make a nice meal with a small group of people in their household and have a nice indulgence, whether it's the decadent chocolate chip pie or whether it's the new hot chocolate ice cream or any of the other ones. So I would sort of say there's been some nice products coming out that way. In terms of no name, nothing fundamentally different. I would say certainly in farmers market would be another one where it's been a real growing brand where, customers are really looking to having, produce, bakery all close to home, like much more regional and specific to the region. We've seen those trends that may be a little bit propelled up by COVID as well, but I would say we would have seen those trends before as well.
Are there any regional quirks around what
regional quirks?
Like?
I mean, I would say that certainly our country is super diverse. So there are differences between what, people buy in different parts of the country, and different provinces react in different ways. An interesting thing is that in Quebec this year, we've seen the biggest increase of all provinces in PC Organics, which is an interesting stat. And then I would say in the Atlantic provinces, they've seen the highest growth in no-name products this year. And definitely there's regional differences, like Quebecers love Quebec cheese and Albertans love, Alberta beef. They don't necessarily want to have Ontario beef or Ontario cheese. So there would always be those types of uniqueness across the country as well. So, we have to make sure that we do reflect all parts of the, of the country as well.
That's fun. You recently launched a marketplace that also sells all sorts of non-food products. So adding to your e-commerce stable and, thinking about the holiday season and how everybody's, well, depending where you live, many of us are trying to do our holiday shopping online. And so do you see that marketplace as an alternative to Amazon, perhaps?
Well, I mean, I think, we launched it at the end of 2019, and we really did launch it as more of a curated online marketplace. So not the marketplace that had endless aisles and endless options. It really was, as a retailer, our job is to curate what we believe are the best products for customers, and that's basically what a store does. It chooses the best products and it offers them in a way, and that's what we wanted to replicate online in some of these new categories as well. And so for us, we chose categories that were close to what we did. So we chose baby, we chose toy, we chose home, we chose kitchen, and we chose pet. So it wasn't the marketplace for everything. It was all related to what we do as a business and where we feel like we actually understand it and the relevance. And then it was like just additional products in those. So a little bit of an extended aisle in some of those areas where you could, and we just thought if we are solving, issues for Canadians, and you're planning a barbecue or you're planning a children's birthday party, if you can get all the food and the cake and everything at our store, why not the present? Why not some of the additional items as well? Why not the toys? Why not, more within that? And it was in that. So I would say sort of curated. So not trying to, beat Amazon at being Amazon, but more offering a curated offering. That was sort of the idea that we've got.
Got it. Okay. A question that's come in related to the meal kits, and it's tied to ESG as well. So the question is around, how does Loblaw balance the convenience of providing meal solutions to Canadians with the environmental impact of delivery? So I'll ask you to answer that, but then I'll actually broaden it just about sustainability in general, because obviously it's been an issue, and Loblaw's been talking about it before. Plastics, packaging. So maybe you could give us an update on your thoughts around ESG.
Yeah, so I would say definitely ESG has been part of what we've been working on. It's sort of moved from the whole, CSR to ESG. I would say for us, we've been looking at, it's a big priority for us. We do recognize that, we can have a big impact positively or negatively in some of these areas. So we do focus on areas and I would say that we focus on those areas that we think matter most to our customers and where we can have the biggest impact. So plastics would be a big area for us. Waste reduction, so plastic and waste reduction would be a big key area for us. Climate change would be a big one for us. We have been doing a lot of work in trying to reduce our carbon footprint and our energy emissions. Those would be big focus areas for us. And then food waste would be the other one where we know that we have a big role in playing in food waste, and the amount of food waste that happens in Canada, we're not great as a country in terms of the amount of food waste we have. So those would be areas where we've made commitments to reduce it. In terms of, it's a great question, this question about, well, how do you balance it? And how does everybody, like in society, when you actually see the amount that's actually being delivered every single day in your neighborhoods, the amount of, courier trucks and deliveries happening every day, like that can't possibly be good for the carbon footprint and for what we are trying to do. So in our space, we're trying to do what we can in terms of reducing it. I would say certainly on our packaging for meal kits, we've been very conscious. We actually repackage them all to be more, to have less packaging, to be less plastic. And it is this balance of making sure it stays safe. So obviously some of the packaging helps food stay safer. And so it is that balance. And then in terms of delivery, we are more into, having the more pickup at the stores, but it still requires, a drive in a car to be able to go and do it. So it is a good point about that. I don't know if us as one company can solve, this whole, move of people to having all of this online deliveries to their home, but it is, we're conscious of it and what role we can play in it as well. It's a great question.
You mentioned delivery vehicles, and it's, I know just a couple of weeks ago, Loblaw announced a partnership with Gatik, which is an autonomous vehicle company based in Palo Alto. And so tell us a bit more about that. Are these self-driving vehicles going to be delivering online groceries? Are we going to see these autonomous vehicles in our neighborhoods sometime soon?
Not sometime soon. So really, we have been working with Gaddick for about a year now, and it's on a really small scale pilot. It's got lots of publicity, but it's one vehicle so far is what we've been working on. And it basically goes from 2 stores to our head office. We've been piloting PC Express. So when people were in the office, they could actually pick up their groceries in the office on their way home, and it would come from 2 of our stores in the local area. And we were using the Gaddick truck, never without a driver, in the pilot. And we will be adding more trucks and more stores, but you shouldn't expect them showing up in your neighborhoods. Like it's the middle mile. So if you think of the last mile being the mile to the to the person's home, this is the middle mile. So it really is between, we're thinking of it between maybe a hub and a spoke, in that space between, a drop-off point, that's where we're seeing it. So not having driverless trucks in people's neighborhoods. That maybe eventually, but not yet.
Okay. Okay, I'm getting a lot of questions back to that leadership question and COVID fatigue. There's the fact that we can't connect virtually, but then I think for factors outside of employment, everybody is just really tired and has a sense of burnout. How are you managing that with your colleagues as a leader?
Yeah, it's a good one because I sort of feel it too, right? So how is it when you actually do feel a bit burnt out and a bit tired, and a bit, mentally it's been challenging, right? It's been so stressful, and at the same time so much work. And if you can't differentiate your work from your home, and there's no differentiation, then it does make it tricky, and you do feel the burden of all of that as well, and then yet still to be up for everybody on the team. So really, it's like the same coping things for me, like talking it out, making sure we have done a few sessions where we've actually talked about how we're, feeling from a mental health perspective. We've done sort of as a management, board team, but then we've sort of brought it down through the organizations as well, to be able to have those conversations and to say, what can we do, to make it a little bit more manageable. Certainly for, in the case of me, my kids are old, and so they don't live with me. But when you think of people who have dual, families, dual parents working with kids at home, and they're supposed to be teaching them, and all of the stress that goes with that, we are looking at ways and sort of asking for advice on how we can be helpful to our teams to make it manageable. Are there things that we can do as a business? And certainly offering up some mental health apps as well. So Silver Cloud was one of them that we offer to all our colleagues, and just different techniques for dealing with it. I think talking about it is a beginning, and then what else you can do to help through it as well. And then I think it's just the adrenaline rush of the business that we're in always brings you back. So for us, super excited about the holidays. So even if we are tired, we know this is an important time of year, and it really is, how do we actually make, it's not going to be the holidays the way that it normally is, but how do we actually still make it super special for Canadians? How do we help them celebrate in a different way, even if it's with a fancy indulgent new product, or in a different way that you put up your Christmas lights, or decorate your home for whatever holiday it is you're celebrating. It's all in that we're trying to bring our value and our mission to life. That's really what we've been doing. So talk about it, communicate, have some options, deal with mental health issues, and have different apps available as well. But those would be the coping mechanisms that we've been working through.
Yeah, and tying it back to your purpose, as you stated at the beginning. At PwC, we're a large employer as well, and I think one thing we heard loud and clear from our people is that they want to see the leaders be authentic and acknowledge that this is hard, and to not have the perfect, I'm happy all the time, right? So I think it's great that you're sharing that. Okay, lots more. Okay, this is an interesting one, kind of on a different tack. What was the most interesting consumer insight post your acquisition of TNT, and were you able to leverage any of these insights to broader Loblaw or other brands?
Yeah, so I mean, I have a really great relationship personally with Tina Lee, who's now the president and CEO of TNT, and she's second gen. Her mom was the one who started TNT, and then Tina now family business. And it was amazing going through that acquisition. So I was involved in the acquisition, and I am now chair of their board. So we do spend quite a bit of time together, and it was just fun to hear their interpretation or what they thought of some of the, Asian products that we picked as to put in the, like in a Loblaw's food store. And we thought, we had picked the best brands and all of that. And, it was fun to hear from them sort of saying, yeah, no Chinese person's ever buying that. And so just how to choose a brand, what things matter. So I think really giving us more insight into, a big part of the population of Canada, and offering better insight in that way. So I would say definitely that was key. I think even the reaction to the pandemic was very different in a T&T store than in a Loblaw or a No Frills, like just different behaviors, different acceptance of wearing masks, things like that. So it was a very interesting dynamic. They felt it in T&T prior to the rest of the business. So that was sort of our introduction to the pandemic. It was actually in February, and we were away I was launching The Purpose, and we were at a conference, and we got this story that came back that, a meat cutter in a T&T was being carried out by people in a hazmat suit. And it was all fake, social media stuff that was happening. But it really was the realization that, oh, wow, this is real. This pandemic is real. And at that point, we made the decision that we are going to stay calm and informed. Like, that's our thing, calm and informed. We're going to use as much data as we can. We're going to use the information from, health or from the government or anywhere we can, and we're going to be calm. We're going to stay calm. And it started with that. So definitely T&T felt it first. And then we managed to get good insights from them through the pandemic as well. And, certainly product suggestions has been the biggest piece. And we have a lot of T&T products now that we sell across all of our stores as well.
Sounds like a great acquisition. We actually hosted Tina Lee as part of a panel earlier at the Canadian Club. And she had some fantastic stories as well about those early days.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, she's a force. Lots of vaccine questions, but I think we've talked about that. Okay, I have a few rapid fire questions for you.
Uh-oh.
Before we wrap up. You don't have to answer them in one-word answers. So what have you personally missed the most during the pandemic?
Well, definitely the social interaction. I loved my old life. Like, I really did. I love my new life too, but it's just different. Like, I really did love that I would go to different offices. I would go to multiple stores. Every day was a different thing for me. Like, I would sort of go to bed, and then I'd look to see, okay, what am I doing tomorrow? And, and it would be very exciting. Now it's not quite so exciting. It's kind of the same routine. So I definitely miss that, the interaction with different people. I also like to travel, so I would say that would be, part of it as well. It's you do what you have to do, right?
Well, let me follow that with what's been some of the unexpected silver linings, both professionally and personally. More personally, because you've covered the professional, I guess.
Yeah, I would say personally, maybe stopping, like the opposite of maybe not living such a crazy, hectic life in terms of moving around as much. I would say still crazy and hectic in terms of, all the decisions that need to be made and all of sort of the emotion, like probably more so in that space, but definitely in terms of, staying put a little bit more, appreciating, family. I have actually seen, even though my daughters don't live with me, my youngest daughter's in university, and certainly at the beginning of the pandemic, she was in Australia on an exchange. And she had just gone in February. And so she ended up having to come back from there, and she basically had to do her term online in a different time zone. So, stuck at home with my husband and I. So not super what she had planned on, but it was really great for me. I got to spend a lot of time with her. My middle daughter, I have 3 daughters. My middle daughter, I also got to spend quite a bit of time with her as she worked from home for a bit too. So she lives downtown Toronto. She came and stayed with us for a while when that, became too small in terms of, being in a little condo. And so all 3 of my daughters, I've seen more. So I would say definitely from that perspective, it's been a positive. I've cooked way more than I ever have. I wouldn't call myself the best cook, but I certainly have done a lot, tried out a lot of new recipes. So maybe that's a good silver lining too.
Those are great. Who is one leader that you admire?
Such a great question. And people do ask me that. I don't know that I can pick out like just one person that I think, like certainly for me in my career, there's just been so many people that I admire. And I do consciously look for the positives in people. And the thing, I've obviously had multiple bosses over my career as well. And, you'd sort of say some were better than others and some you learn more from than others. But for me, I always sort of search for what I could learn from this person and what was it that made them successful and what were the good things about it. So for me, I've been more of a watcher of people and picking out the things that you sort of think, oh, I really love the way that worked out for them. So not one person. I feel like I've got like an accumulation of a whole bunch of really, really great attributes of great leaders. And I've also picked out the ones that, made, me personally feel terrible to say, oh yeah, I just have to remind myself, never do that to somebody. And not that they intentionally did it either. In many cases that it was just the way that it worked out. So I would say sort of trying to pick up the good and then try to stay away from the bad. So not one specific leader.
Tied to actually your colleagues at Loblaw, if you had to name one quality of what it takes to do well at Loblaw, could you name one quality?
Well, I believe in trust. So I mean, it is one of the fundamentals of our culture. I think that really matters. I like authenticity as well, so that's two. But I really do think that trust to me is everything. I think you do need to have that, and so it's important to be authentic and truthful in your behavior. So I pick trust.
All right, good one. I like it. Okay, what is your favorite President's Choice product?
There's so many I love. This time of year, I have to go with the candy cane ice cream, though. I really, really do love that ice cream. So if you haven't tried it, it's got candy canes and chocolate crackles in it. And I wouldn't say that everyone in my family loves it, so I don't always buy it because it does mean that I end up eating a lot of it. But it's very tasty. But there's some good favorites too. I love the Black Label sauces, like the tomato sauces. Those are really good products. I love, of course, the TC Decadent cookie is a good one. So I have lots of favorites, but the ice cream's good. And then the new one that came out is pretty tasty too. If you like mint in your ice cream, the hot chocolate mint one, it's pretty tasty too. So, and it doesn't, if you don't like the texture of the candy cane being crunchy, the other one's smooth. So it's delicious too.
Now I'm just starving. Okay, I'm going to leave you with the last word. Is there anything that you'd like to say to Canadians before we wrap up?
Well, I mean, I think I would, like, on behalf of our organization and all of the colleagues in our business, thanks for supporting us through this. We've had so much, as much as I've heard so much from colleagues, I've never heard so much from customers as well. And showing, shout outs to our customers, telling me like great service and great stories. It's been really beautiful. It is something that, has brought us all together. I've also heard, the not so good stories, but I would say mostly I've just heard a lot of really good stories. So I'd just like to thank everybody for the support through this, so for our business and for the colleagues who are trying to help Canadians live life well. Thank you so much for all the support.
Great. And thank you so much for joining us today and sharing, because as we said, grocery shopping has been the most exciting thing going on for most of us this year. Viewers, I hope that you can also join us for some of our upcoming events. Tomorrow, Wednesday, December 9th, we're hosting a panel of financial and policy experts, including Mark Wiseman and Gerald Butts, to help Canadians understand the challenges involved in sustainable investing. And so we hope you can join us for that. And then on Tuesday, December 15th, we'll host a panel of best-selling authors for a discussion on hockey's cultural contribution to Canada. So our panelists include former Maple Leafs captain Rick Vive and co-host of Hockey Night in Canada, Punjabi Harnarayan Singh. Thank you again to BLG and PwC for sponsoring today's event. We've been around for 124 years and we could not do that without our sponsors. And thank you to our AV supplier, Van Valkenburg Communications and LiveMeeting.ca for making it possible for us to come together virtually today. Guests, thanks so much for joining us. Stay healthy and stay safe.